And you guys could be doing a ton of other things, but you're right here. So obviously that means there is nothing better else to do. There's nothing new on Netflix tonight. So that's good that you're here with me. Let's just say, I don't know if you've heard of this case anywhere else. We're going to 2022, July. We are in the UK. This is where we're going to tonight. Some train tracks right here. Not a good scene here on July 22nd, 2022. All right, here we go. So we are going to Ray Lane, and I took you right to a train track, so you automatically know that this isn't going to be a good ending for whoever's at that train track. But we're going to July 22nd, 2022. This is shortly after 1 p.m. This is who we're talking about tonight. This right here is Kiena Dawes. She is a 23-year-old. As you can probably tell by her hair, she is a professional hairdresser, a cosmetologist. The body of a 23-year-old hairdresser from Fleetwood, Lancashire. Her bright auburn hair is contrasting with the rough gravel of the train tracks and the metal of the rails, of the train track rails. She was hit by a train, and I showed you where this was. It is out in the country. As you can imagine, because we have covered stories with deaths of this nature, train track deaths are extremely violent. The train, I don't know how fast they go, 120 miles an hour. They're hitting a human body, her body weighing 140 pounds, the train weighing, who knows, altogether hundreds of tons. It's a violent death. It is a gruesome death. And not only is it that, it is also a death which takes place over possibly 100 yards or more, because the body, even though it's laying on the train tracks, half of it will get cut off, half of it will go down the track. There's blood all on the tracks from where she was initially hit. It is just a very gruesome, extremely gruesome death. I would not want to be the police or the EMT or, God forbid, the kid riding his bike on the train track or whatever by the train track, stumble upon this body. Obviously, the train conductor knew what had happened. He could not slow down this train fast enough, but it was broad daylight. So by the time he did see Kiena, it was too late, but he did try to slow down, and she was killed in an extremely brutal fashion. Although it was a violent death, Kiena, she looked like she had finally found peace, like she had finally escaped. From what the police would find out soon enough, what did she escape from? But they would use the small fading bruises all over her body, everywhere on her body. They would use those bruises as a playbook about how she ended up on these train tracks to begin with. They could tell her life story from the last 2 years through every bruise on her body, even the ones that she meticulously covered up with her blush and her makeup on her face. That was the routine for her. Once you get the makeup off, you can see what she's been living through for the last 2 years. 20 miles away from where this horrible scene played out was a small flat in Fleetwood. There, her 9-month-old baby daughter, Marnie, was sleeping peacefully. Has no idea where mommy is. The baby's in the arms of Keena's best friend, Stacy Farrell. She's being coddled, but at the same time, Stacy is trying to make sense of everything that has happened this morning, because she had no idea when she woke up this morning, even though Kiena dropped her baby off, kissed her forehead, and Kiena looked like she was dressed to the nines. She had done her makeup. She had spent an unusual amount of time on her makeup. She was wearing her favorite sundress, her blue sundress. Stacy is coddling this baby, still trying to figure out what is happening. Where is Kiena? She has no idea and would never, ever imagine that her best friend since childhood is on the train tracks in multiple pieces, because by this time she had already been killed. She would never imagine that. And she is going through shock, and at the same time she's trying not to get the baby distraught. She's trying to control her emotions. She's trying to make the phone calls that need to be made. She is trying to reconcile this situation. She is rocking baby Marnie back and forth, looking down on the table table is a carefully packed baby bag. Diapers, toys, the favorite toys, formula, all the clothes meticulously folded. It's a final act of a mother's devotion, a careful preparation for a future that she would not even be part of. And it speaks volumes of who we're talking about tonight, the victim here, Kiena. It speaks volumes of her and her motherly devotion to meticulously prepare this bag like the way she did. Even in her darkest moments, that one decision that will bring her finality, that young mother with the fading bruises still thinks more about Marnie's well-being, her baby daughter's well-being, than her own. Can you guys on live chat, can anyone take a guess how Kiena got on the train tracks? How this beautiful 23-year-old, the mother of a 9-month-old baby, Marnie, got on these train tracks? Lauren says she killed herself. When I was doing this story, I was thinking about baby Marnie, and there's a GoFundMe page if this story affects anyone, if anyone can relate to this story. You now have a parentless baby, Marnie, who is, I guess, 3 years old now. There's a GoFundMe for her. It was for the mother's funeral, and, I'm sure that's been paid off now, but now it's for Marnie when she turns 18. Anyway, but when I was doing this story, I was thinking about the baby, 9-month-old baby Marnie, and we'll talk about how beautiful and how much positivity and joy the mother brought to the world and to her family. She was well loved, extremely positive about life. She had this goal of, which I think would have already been coming to fruition now in 2025, but she wanted to own her own salon, and she just daydreamed of doing this, owning her own salon there in that small town, doing hair all day, doing nails, maybe plopping her baby daughter up on the counter, laughing with her, and just making a good life. And that was her. She was simple, and she brought a lot of joy to her family and friends. But I was thinking about the baby. Would she ever remember the mother? Would she have any memory growing up of the mother and how much the mother loved Marnie? There's plenty of pictures of them when she was really active on Facebook with the baby at the beach and the baby out in the park, all kinds of stuff. So just, I wonder if she would ever remember that. As far as the baby, she is being raised by Keena's brother, and she's in good hands. So that's good to know. Anyway, Stacy looked down at her phone. She's coddling Marnie, the baby, trying to make sense of what is going on. Why, she's been trying to call Kiena for hours now, and her phone is just not picking up. It's dead or turned off or something. She finally looked down at her own phone, and she saw a message from Kiena, and it said, quote, "I fought hard. I fought long. I went through pain no one could imagine. I was murdered. Ryan Wellings killed me." And that was the last message that she received from her childhood friend. And now she's got to learn very soon that her childhood friend Kiena is on the train track. So let's talk about this guy, this man with the charming smile that came into Keena's life and within 2 years completely destroyed her, made her a shadow, what her friends called a shadow of her former self. Who is this guy? And more importantly, with this story, God forbid this is happening to any one of you guys on here. That would be awful, horrible, as you're going to see. If you're in one of these types of relationships, that would be just terrible news. But there may be somebody that that is in one of these relationships, and this story could help you see some of the signs. Some of them carry over from one victim to the next. This is an abuse case, and for instance, the day that Kiena decided to throw herself in front of the train, she spent an unusual amount of time on her makeup, and she wore her favorite dress, the one that made her feel pretty again, and she spent hours getting ready. We know that is a sure sign, especially if they're going through this, that's the end. If you have a friend going through this that says that is suicidal or has talked like this, if you see them spending an unusual amount of time on their looks, it could be within hours of their demise. I've covered a lot of these cases. I'm not just saying that, I really have. And in so many of these cases, these suicide cases, the victim always dresses up. And the first one that I can remember, the oldest one I can remember, if you guys remember the suicide of Evelyn McHale, I'm going to show you her picture right now, but it was a lady. She had jumped off the United Nations building or something, and her photo became famous because, as you're about to see, it's called The Most Beautiful Suicide. But that's her. She had plunged to her death, and she actually crunched a limousine. She's on top of a limousine. But you look at her, look what she's wearing. She's wearing the nice white gloves. She had painted her toenails. She is wearing makeup. She's wearing lipstick. It's not just something I'm saying. This is something that happens with suicide victims. They do this if they're in this mindset. So the reason I'm saying that is if someone is going through a case like this, if she's going through this type of stuff and you notice them doing that may be a damn sure sign that you need to intervene. I'm just saying. Anyway, let's talk about the man with the charming smile that ruined and ended up killing Kiena within 2 years. That's him right here. His name is Ryan Wellings. He was a 30-something male, tall, muscular. He's a landscape gardener, so he works a lot outside. He's tan. He does got a nice smile. He's charismatic. He's funny. He's got a lot of friends. Exactly, a narcissist. He met Kiena in a local pub in 2020, and from one of Keena's friends, quote, he made her feel special from the start, said a childhood friend who witnessed the beginning of what would be this fatal relationship. Quote, it was like watching someone fall under a spell. And with this story particularly, this is an abuse story, but it's more of a psychology take on it. There's certain methods and tactics the abuser will use to entrap their victim. And can I just say this right now? Let me just get this off, because I know a lot of people, especially men listening to this, think like I used to think with this, and a lot of people may think this. You're going to see that a lot of people would say, well, she killed herself. What's the big deal? She killed herself. There's a lady named Micah Miller that I cover her story in detail, and covering her story and spending so much time on it, it finally hit me that when people say, oh, well, she just killed herself, what's the big deal? Because I used to think like that. It's not that simple. She may have killed herself, but she had no choice in the matter. She was trapped and she had nowhere to go. As you're going to see, this guy is a monster, and for her to just kill herself, that was the only way out of the life that she is now inherited, and she can't leave. The same with Micah Miller. The laws do not support, and the courts do not support, the domestic violence victim at all. They don't look at it as murder. They don't look at it as manslaughter. They look at it as like an abuse case with a suicide. I think that should be changed. The Micah Miller case especially really got me to believe that law should 100% be changed, because it is not like they're doing it because they want to. They're doing it because they absolutely have no choice. That is the only way out. And I think that is murder, in my opinion. Just because someone's not there pulling the trigger or putting you on the train tracks, it's still murder. They're making them do it. There's no way out, as you're going to see. Anyway, I just want to get that off my chest. Anyway, this was a fairy tale romance from the start. Within the first week, within 7 days of meeting Kiena, Kiena at that local pub, he had tattooed her name on his chest without her knowing, surprised her with it. Now, not to victim blame, but this to me would be a red flag. And the one article did say that she did express like an unnerving feeling to one of her friends. We just wish that she would have really seen that as a bona fide red flag, because tattooing someone's name on your body within the first week, within a week of meeting her name's tattooed on his chest. This is what psychologists call a grand gesture. It is a huge step. This is a grand gesture of love. Now, keep in mind, this is only within a week, but it gets more and more. Within 3 months, he would propose to Kiena. This is what psychiatrists call love bombing. This is an abuser tactic. When an abuser gets into a relationship, he'll love bomb them. They'll do all these big things, tattoo your name, get you a nice ring, always show up early for dates, open your car door. They'll be interested in everything you say about the day at the salon, about this, that, and the other. They're love bombing you. They're just showing you that this is a fairy tale and it's a true fairy tale. What they're really doing is masking their true personality and how things really are going to be. That's why they're doing this, and that's why it's so explosive. But human nature, we work off emotions. Mad Shiny Heather says total manipulation. That is 100% true. Manipulation, that's what it is. This is manipulation 101. But this is what they call love bombing. It's when you shower your target with a fairy tale-like relationship, all that glitter and glam, just to mask their true intents and personalities. Quote, "She showed me the ring with so much pride," her mother Angela would later testify, her voice breaking with emotion. "I remember thinking it was all happening so fast, but she seemed happy. I wanted so badly for her to be happy after losing her dad." So she had just lost her dad. And this engagement ring, it's 3 months in, which is way too early for me. That ring, that engagement ring, to a victim like Kiena, it's a symbol of true dedication and true love. But to an abuser, that engagement ring is a symbol of ownership. That is the difference. When I did the Micah Miller case, that's why I called it the signature, because the abuser, J.P. Miller, did the exact same thing. He didn't tattoo Micah's name on his body and vice versa to show his love. He did it to show his ownership. That right there is a fine line that hardly anyone can see, but that really drives it home, I believe. It's not a symbol of love, but a symbol of ownership. It's a glittering handcuff. That's all it is. That little ring is just a glittering handcuff. And that thing will tighten and tighten and tighten as the months turn into years, if they even get that far. The change in the relationship, now they met in 2020. She died in 2022. This is less than 2 years. Less than 2 years, you can break a person, a 23-year-old who is a beautiful 23-year-old, who has a good family support, a good job, who loves life. You can break someone down within 2 years using these types of abuse tactics. And that's what's terrible about it. The change is not quick, though. You don't see it. It's not like, oh, yes, I will marry you, and then all of a sudden just hitting them in the face. It's not like that. These abuse cases, they're gradual, but they're relentless. The changes are gradual, but relentless. Like eroding stone, like water eroding stone. It just doesn't start. But when it does start, it gradually just keeps going until it's relentless. The first signs were small. Kiena wore a shirt that was, quote, too revealing for Ryan's taste. She would tell her friend, it doesn't even show anything. It doesn't show my belly button. But according to him, it's too revealing, right? Now, this is going on month 4. Around this time, there is a pregnancy. She does get pregnant with his child, and that is Barney. The baby is his child. But the first signs were small, like I said, the too revealing t-shirt, the glances that he gives gives her when she's on the phone just a little too long with her mother. Like, what? Why are you on the phone so long? I don't like that. Stuff like that is small and seems insignificant, but that is how these abusers, for instance, dismantle her entire support system. If you're glancing at your woman because she's spending too much time on the phone with her mother, your woman's going to get the idea that maybe she shouldn't be talking to her mother because she doesn't want to piss you off. That little thing leads to that dismantling. And, first it's the shorter phone calls. Next it's the excuses of why she's missing family dinners. And it just goes on and gets greater and greater and greater. These little things keeps her on her toes. This is what psychologists call walking on eggshells. You don't want to do anything to ruin this relationship because of all the grand gestures. You still believe it's a fairy tale marriage, even though now you're starting to see some very slight signs that things aren't the way they should be. You're now walking on eggshells because you don't want to ruin the future, such a great future, by pissing this guy off and saying the wrong thing. All right. She had no idea that he at the time was systematically dismantling her entire support network, her family, her friends, her social media. Her social media posts, once vibrant, now silent. There's no post, excuses given to her parents for missing dinners. At the time, around this time, she becomes pregnant. And this is when the boyfriend, Ryan Wellings, makes his first, quote from his words, mistake. Small mistake. A very small mistake. He just, he was drinking a little bit and I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking, but slap right in the face. Slapped her in the face. It doesn't start with black eyes. It doesn't start with throwing her down the stairs. It doesn't start with all that stuff. It starts with a right across the face. Oh my God. Baby, I am so sorry. Oh, baby. I don't know what I was thinking. That does change the dynamic quite a bit, but the flowers that he brings are fresh. They smell good. His tears that come down his face and when he's begging for forgiveness, they seem real. These are real tears. Maybe he even believes it. It's a mistake. That's all it is. It was just a one-time mistake. It will never progress again. You might as well forget about it. Write it off like it didn't happen. All right. You guys like this shit? Anyway, nothing more big, no more mistakes happened until about the 7th month pregnancy mark. And then he would tell neighbors, because they did ask about her black eye, that she just ran into the cupboard. You know how women are. I mean, she just opened the cupboard and it just bonked her right in the eye. I mean, come on. That's the 7th month pregnant mark you just saw. That's her black eye. Is this too depressing? It's about to get really depressing. I'm just telling you right now. So if you're already blocking out, holy shit. She didn't know about the documented history of violence that Ryan Wellings had listed on him. The documented history, the court papers, this court papers, they're still there. The abuse of his previous baby mama, his battering of his ex-girlfriend, the one that gave him the twin girls. He battered her. She didn't know about that. She also didn't know about the criminal damage, the burglary, and all the petty crimes that he's committed since he was 16. But she was still telling friends that this was a, quote, fairy tale. But eventually, and these are her words, she had a diary. The diary was found. Her friends testified. She used the words like fairy tale, and she had told friends that her fairy tale was turning into a, quote, nightmare. In May 2020, this is 7 months pregnant, right after the black eye, she was nearly strangled to death with an iPhone cable. He got mad about something. He drank too much, and he took an iPhone cable and wrapped it around her throat. He then takes a stool after she gets up and gets her breath back, a kitchen stool, and throws it at her. Now, this is in her her apartment. He doesn't own his own place. She does. She's the one going places. She's the one with goals. She's the one who's saving up for her own salon. He's the one who's stealing her money. He's the one bringing her down. He's the one damaging her furniture by taking a kitchen stool and throwing it at her. He throws a stool at her, yelling that she should go kill herself. Prosecutor Paul Greerney described Ryan Wellings as an, quote, entitled aggressive bully. Keena's friends described him as a, quote, horrible little bastard. So y'all kind of know the story now. We're about to get into it really bad here, but just take a little guess about how much trouble this guy got into. And then you can kind of see where the problem is in this world. When she was 7 months pregnant, this is where his words became more effective than his fist. You can only hit her so much. You can only push her down the stairs so many times. He found out that his words could do more damage, and so he started using words. For instance, she's 7 months pregnant. She's got a baby inside of her. She gained weight. She is eating for two. According to him, she's a, quote, fat little bitch, end quote. He gives her a black eye. She's pregnant. She is emotionally distraught. You know, her hormones are also crazy, like any woman in pregnancy is. Plus, she's dealing with this horrible little bastard. So she is putting up with this guy. He is calling her fat. Not only calling her fat, he is sitting on the computer there in the bed, and he's talking to prostitutes and escorts online. Now, he doesn't really care if she sees. In fact, he brags about it to her. You know, why are you doing that? Well, look at you. You're fucking fat and gross. You know, I'd rather talk to these women. That's him right there. Heather says he drives a big truck. I mean, all right, would you give this guy the time or day? I mean, he's not a bad looking dude. Let's just be honest. I mean, and that's one of the problems. No, Shram says he's not as ugly as he should be. That's a good point. That's a really good point. I mean, maybe I should have showed you photos earlier of him, but you know, he's not a bad looking dude. And that is one of the big problems, you know, and he's got the tattoos and stuff. So he looks, you know, he looks interesting, right? And like this photo, I guess is like a good one of you know, he's not a bad looking dude. So, you know, you can't blame someone for buying into what he's saying. He would order escorts and brag about having sex with prostitutes. Now this is when she was pregnant because she was fat. That's what he would say. He would get on social media, on Instagram, and follow different models or girls or whatever that had better bodies than Kiena. Like, she's seeing this, right? She is seeing all this. That right there is abuse. That is emotional abuse. In April 2021, Ryan Wellings forced her to stop taking her medication. Her medication was for a documented diagnosis of a personality disorder, and stop taking her medication made her feel suicidal and depressed. That right there, I believe, should account for so much more than it does. Because, like I said, she had nowhere else to run. Now she is forced to stop taking her meds because of him. And he would do stuff like dump the meds in the toilet. You know, that's what I mean by force them to stop taking their meds. She finally threw him out of her apartment. He texted her saying, if you don't let me back in, I'm going to light your car on fire. He then changes his Facebook profile to himself smiling and holding a lighter. Again, from her final message, quote, the end. I fought hard. I fought long. I went through pain no one could imagine. Now, Ryan Wellings told the judge that, quote, he's not a monster. He's not a monster. Okay. I don't know if you guys believe that. This is a picture of Kiena. That's her bandaged face right there. That's how she looked like before, and that's how she looks like after he had beaten her. Okay. This is Keena's apartment. You see the blood trail. That's a lot of blood, right? This is Kiena. He throws her into a radiator. She had to get facial stitches for her lacerations, but yet he claims that he's not a monster. Ryan Wellings will tell the jury that he never hit her, but it was all accidental when he was, quote, restraining her. I never hit her. It just happened when I was restraining her. That's what he said. In fact, he would hit her at least once a week, but sometimes was worse than others. Once he kicked a wooden door, a heavy wooden door, into her head with so much force that she blacked out. She blacked out. He would, quote, pull her hair out, pull it out of the scalp. He would slap her. He would punch her in the face. He threatened her on more than one occasion to throw acid in her face and, quote, make her look like Katie Piper, which is a celebrity who had an acid attack. She was a model and a newscaster, and someone threw acid in her face. He held her down on multiple occasions, restrained her under his own weight, and then took an electric drill, like a DeWalt, and put it right against her cheek and pressed the trigger. At the same time, he was yelling at her that he was going to, quote, drill the teeth out of her mouth. He isolated her from friends, family, and more importantly, a suicide support network that she was trying to attend. He wouldn't let her go. Her father had recently died suddenly. He, Ryan Wellings, would attempt to throw the father's ashes out of the window, and another time almost flushed them down the toilet. Quote from her suicide note, "I was murdered. Ryan Wellings killed me. He ruined every bit of strength I had left. I had dreams. I had a future at one point. That was taken away from me." On top of all of this, he employed these sophisticated psychological abuse tactics like isolation, intimidation, and exploitation. Judge Robert Autumn, when sentencing Wellings, described him as a, quote, clear danger to any woman who had shown no remorse for his actions. The judge further stated that Wellings had treated Kiena in a cruel and vindictive manner, highlighting the calculated nature of his abuse. He did get jail time, although not a lot. On the way out to jail, after he was sentenced, he blew a kiss to his former girlfriend. He accused her of cheating. He monitored her social media. He checked her phone regularly. If she contacted friends or family, and especially if she said anything about the abuse, he would, quote, punish her. He repeatedly told her to kill herself, to, quote, he was going to finish what he started, end quote, if she went to the police. He said the police wouldn't believe her, and then he would punish her, and it would be much worse. When she did go to the police, like in all these cases, she would downplay the bruises and abuse, saying that she overreacted and her injuries were, quote, not that bad. You saw her apartment. There were blood everywhere in that apartment. She was pushed down the stairs. She ended up in the hospital 5 times. 5 times. He would threaten her and say that if she goes to the police or tells anyone, she would be met with severe violence to her and her baby. You tell me that she just killed herself, that she just did it on her own. She had no other choice. He was going to hurt their baby. He was going to kill her, and if not that, he was going to get that baby taken away from her. He was going to make her look like a psycho because she was on meds. This is a post that she had wrote on her Facebook. You can read this. I'll read it right quick. Just as I'm reading it, just remember that the police contacted her about this post and told her to take it down. Here's the post. It says, "The emotional abuse got a lot worse throughout the pregnancy as he knew I couldn't go anywhere else and would stay with him. He then began becoming unfaithful, speaking to other women. When I found out about this, he said it's all my fault because of my hormones. He made me believe I was the one in the wrong. I ended back up in the hospital as I felt I was losing my mind, and he told me I was. Then when I came out of the hospital, he carried on being unfaithful and emotionally abusive. I have told him I feel like I am a victim of domestic violence, and of course he thinks I am insane. I get what I deserve. When the baby was born in the labor, he was amazing with me, so I thought it was perfect and to stay with him. It wasn't long till he was hurting me again. I told him I didn't want anything happening around the baby. I get hit around the head every week now, even if it's just a slap, but he's made me believe that's acceptable because I argue back with him. Last week we fell out as I told him I'm not sure I want this anymore. He got a drill turned on and put it in my face and told me he would drill my teeth out of my mouth. My dad, who I was very close to, passed away last year. His ashes are at my house. He threatens to throw him out the window. Recently Recently, I have noticed I have lost myself and how I usually manage things. I have started to believe I deserve this and I am not good enough. He can be so perfect to me and a fantastic person, but then this is in between. I have decided to leave and now my mom will not let me home or back near him at all. He has been texting, ringing, etc., telling me everything I want to hear, promising me the world, and I'm finding it hard to ignore as I feel lonely and like I do need him. He is saying splitting my family up, etc. So it's crazy, right? Effing crazy. What do you guys think of this so far? Nuts, right? She tried to escape many times. 3 months before this happened, she had told one of her friends, this was the evening, April 2022, it was raining outside. 3 months before her death, she stood on the doorstep of one of her childhood friends' home and her eye was, quote, swollen shut. Her lip was split open and she was telling her friend, this is in the middle of the night, she said, I can't do this anymore. He's going to kill me if I stay. The police came and they documented everything and they took photos of her all busted up. Court documents show at least five occasions where she had to flee to friends or family seeking refuge from this guy and his escalating violence. And each time he would convince her and coerce her to return. Quote, he would call her phone 50, 60 times a day when she stayed with me. Her mother, Angela, later testified, when she wouldn't answer, he'd call me, threatening to hurt himself if she didn't come back. Once he showed up at 3 a.m., pounding on the door, screaming that he needed to see his daughter. Kiena went back with him just to make him stop. Have y'all seen that video where that kid, it reminds me of this so much, man, that the father shoots daughter's boyfriend through the door? Have y'all seen that? All right, so this guy was emotionally abusive in this relationship, and this was in Ohio. He shows up at the door, family's door, beating on the door, threatening to kill her, and the father gets a shotgun and shoots him through the door and kills him. I don't know if you can hear it, but this is like the video. It reminds me of this so much, man. You see him right there just being all emotional and just unhinged. I don't think there's any sound, but you see him. He's trying to open the door. The door's locked. He's trying to get in the door right now, and they're telling him to leave. And he starts beating on the door. You see he's trying to pry it open. The father goes on the other side with a shotgun. You see he's trying to actually push the door open with his body, but he gets shot twice right in the chest. Yeah, the dad had warned him multiple times he was going to shoot him. All of a sudden, he just blasts his ass away. So it reminds me of this, a phenomenon known as trauma bonding. This is when I need you back. I'm going to kill myself if you don't come back type of thing. And just calling over and over and over. This is called trauma bonding. And, quote, victims become psychologically tethered to their abusers through alternating periods of extreme cruelty and occasional kindness. This creates a powerful addiction-like attachment that can be nearly impossible to break without intervention. So she had tried to escape. There was 5 documented times that she actually went to the police, and the police actually told her to take down that Facebook page because they didn't want to incite his anger. But there's 5 different times that they could have stopped this and nothing was done. He said that he was going to, if she ever leaves, quote, leave if you want, but you'll never keep my daughter. I'll make sure everyone knows you're too crazy to be a mother. She continued to seek help. She contacted the Lancashire police 5 times between January and July 2022. The transcripts of these phone calls reveal a woman who is increasingly desperate yet constrained by fear of this guy. That one time where she was hit in the head with the door, she had lost consciousness. She blacked out. She texted a friend when she came to. She took her to the hospital. The nurses called the police. The police filed a report saying that she was, quote, disoriented and fearful, and repeatedly asking where Ryan was because she was so afraid that he was coming to, quote, finish what he started. This is all in the police report. Despite all of these warning signs, the hospital let her go. Here's the crowning achievement. The hospital let her go with a brochure on domestic violence, a leaflet on domestic violence. Is that not saying fuck you. Holy shit. It's her 5th time being bandaged up, being stitched up, and you're giving her a brochure about domestic violence. You might as well give her a fucking candy bar and a Coke too. Holy tits. Police officers told her about that Facebook post that it could potentially jeopardize any future legal case. What future? She doesn't have a future. On the morning of July 22nd, 2022, it was bright and clear, beautiful day. She woke up early. She spent a quote unusual amount of time on her makeup. Much of the makeup she wore was to cover her raccoon eyes. It was to cover the bruises on the side of her temples. It was to cover bruises. But she spent an unusual amount of time. She put on her favorite blue sundress that her friend Stacy would later testify that she said, "That one makes me feel pretty again." She is 23 years old and she is beautiful, and she is thinking a dress makes her feel pretty. That is such a problem. She then packed that bag for Marnie, her baby, even with a handwritten note about Marnie's feeding schedule and how that Marnie likes to be rocked to sleep. The details are so small and seem insignificant, but they're so telling. They speak volumes of this mother who will never see her baby again. You know, this final act, but she just wants her baby to be taken care of. At 10:30 that morning, Kiena called Stacy and asked her if she can come over to talk. Quote, "She sounded calm, almost peaceful." Stacy later testified, "I had no idea anything was wrong." That is the time when everything's wrong. When she spends an unusual amount of time on her makeup and she is calm and she is peaceful, that calm and peace, when you see in suicide victims that look calm and peaceful, as a lot of them do, that's because they finally made the decision. They're basically already dead. They have made the decision. They have moved on mentally, just not in their body yet. At this point, there is no waiting, like an intervention. But most people don't see this. You just see someone who's peaceful and in a good mood. She is about to kill herself, but she is at peace. It takes people a while to do this. They got to plan everything. They think a lot about it, how the world's going to perceive me when I'm gone. You know, they think about their families, their friends, their mom. Like, what would they think of me? I need to go out the best way I can. They plan a lot. I'm talking from personal experience. I know plenty of guys that took their own lives in the military. Plenty of guys that have done this. Okay. She kissed her daughter's forehead goodbye and even inhaled the baby's scent. Just getting that last bit of smell. Maybe she can carry it on with her, right? At that time, we can piece together the rest of her story through CCTV and witness statements and phone records. She took a bus to Garstang, arriving around 2 p.m. She sent one final text to her mother, quote, "I love you, Mom. I'm sorry." Then she turned off her phone. At 3:15, she walked onto the railroad tracks where minutes later she would be struck by an incoming train. So the suicide note she left was really telling. It said, "I fought hard. I fought long. I went through pain no one could imagine. I was murdered. Ryan Wellings killed me. He ruined every bit of strength I had left. I didn't deserve it." She continued through the words, quote, "I hope my life saves another by police services acting faster. Don't let bullies live free." She's even calling this guy a bully. She also wrote words to her daughter, quote, "I'm so sorry to leave. Mommy." Oh man, this is really heartbreaking right here. Words to her daughter, her baby daughter, Marnie. "I'm so sorry to leave. Mommy loves you so much. You are everything and more. But my dreams and future were taken away from me." So this guy, it's easy for him in court because she's not there. She's not there. It's his word against no one's. She's not there. So what's he going to do? His defense is to make her look crazy. His defense is to say that she was exaggerating. She had mental health issues. You know, it's not his fault. He's not a monster. But yet, looking at what I presented today, you know, so his strategy was to blame the victim and presented himself as the reasonable one, the one who was most straight thinking. He called whatever she said ramblings. He exploited her. He undermined her credibility. So after 3 days of deliberation, the jury returned their verdict. He was found guilty of assault and coercive and controlling behavior, but cleared of manslaughter. Manslaughter would have put him in jail for a long time. He He's in jail for 6.5 years now. And he is a terrible, terrible person. There's in one of his latest acts, he is claiming that as soon as he, quote, gets out of here for this bullshit, he's going to go get his daughters. There's other stuff too. The new girlfriend was also facing jail time for trying to coerce the jury and stuff. I mean, just him controlling her too. She's going to be the next victim. I mean, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, that's it, man. That's the piece of shit who's in jail for 6 years. That's him. So like I said earlier, man, I know these stories are kind of like a lot of people downplay them. And I used to do that too, man. I used to say, well, she did it herself. She killed herself. Like, what's the point? Like, why, you know? But dude, they have nowhere to go. They, like Micah Miller, you got to listen to that podcast. It's called The Signature. I put a lot of time into it. She may have killed herself. She may have pulled the trigger. No one else was around, but she had no choice, man. She left, but then she realized that she couldn't go anywhere. He had trackers. This is the Micah Miller one. He was tracking her every movement. He was threatening her. She had nowhere to go. You don't want to you can't just say, oh, why didn't she just just leave to California or something? You have family. Your whole life is here. You have nowhere to go. If you stay here, he's going to kill you eventually. You know, you have no other choice. That is what I feel like the courts really need to see, man, because yeah, she did kill herself. She did put herself on the train tracks, but it's because that was the only escape for her. If she didn't do that, she's putting her daughter's life in jeopardy. You know what I'm saying? Like this guy would easily abuse that baby girl if she didn't comply to his every demand. You know what I'm saying? She had no other choice. So in my mind, that is murder, man. That is 100% murder. I don't know. Anyway, shit. I hope y'all like that. I know it's kind of different. I don't know how long I've been on here. I had fun, man. I love doing this, and hopefully, keep this shit going. I'm so glad that you guys are here. It's one thing doing this by myself, and then I see all y'all chatting, and that makes me so happy. It makes me want to keep doing this. But that's all I got for today's story. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I got to wake up at literally 6 hours from now or something. So I got to go to bed. But thank you so much for being here. And yeah, I'll be back this week for another story. So yeah, until next time, good night, you lovely, lovely people.
Kind of run this shit.